By the end of this video, you'll be able to decide what type of knowledge broker you want to be in different situations. Hi, Knowledge Brokerage friends, and welcome to this video on how to be a social sciences and humanities knowledge broker. To explore this, I'm going to be asking 3 questions. The first question is, how much interaction is possible with those in policy and practice? And by that I mean, how much access do you have to those in policy and practice? Now, when interaction is limited, you might want to act as a science or social science communicator who aims to communicate the results of their research or maybe of the research of others in an accessible and relevant way so that it can be used. Now, this can still involve some two-way interaction. For example, you might respond to a call for evidence from policymakers, but the interaction is quite contained and perhaps a bit limited. At the other end of the scale, when the possibility for interaction is very high, a researcher can assume the role of a participatory expert. So this is a researcher who shares, exchanges, and even produces knowledge and solutions together with the users to the point that the distinction between the knowledge user and the knowledge producer is actually very blurred. And then finally, there's a sort of an intermediary role between these two extremes. This is called the honest broker. And in this situation, the researchers try to interpret the problem or policy actor and honestly propose different solution options. But the researcher does not get involved in delivery. Now, this does still require, of course, quite a bit of engagement from policy actors to play this role. And it can take time to develop the relationships with individuals or organizations to be an honest broker. Each of these can be useful to play in different situations. Now, another question to ask is, whose aims are the priority in the knowledge brokerage exercise? Or better said, which points of view do you want to prioritize? In these situations, knowledge brokers can play more of a servicing role if they give priority to the frames and values of interest of the users. So maybe those of policy workers or those in practice that you're working with. Or on the contrary, they can play more of an advocacy role if they're giving priority to their own or others' researchers, frames, values, and interests. But there's maybe a third way, a diversifying role. And this is where researchers deliberately try to identify and include frames, values, or interests of a wider range of actors. This can include perhaps those of more marginalized voices. This can be a focus of social science and humanities research, which means that SSH perspectives can be an excellent role and can also be supported by keeping kind of reflective record of your work as a knowledge broker, thinking about whose aims am I really trying to prioritize here. Now there's a third question I'm going to ask. What is the aim of the knowledge brokerage exercise that you're involved with? If you're working with somebody in policy or practice, this can be helpful to discuss earlier on to understand a bit of their expectations. For example, are they just looking to access existing knowledge better? Or are they looking to manage knowledge better? Or lastly, are they looking to develop new knowledge? To break these 3 down a little more, when you do start a project, you might not know all the possibilities of what you could aim for. And a part of your role as a knowledge broker can be to help explore what they want and what they need. So brokers can play more of an information role. This involves informing users about existing knowledge and facilitating their access to information sources and translating knowledge in ways that help people understand and apply it. In this informing role, you can be very useful for facilitating new areas of research that they might not be aware of. And this doesn't necessarily have to be just your own research. There's also a second role you can play, which is when you're really trying to help users manage knowledge in better ways. This is to help them improve their ability to use knowledge in decision-making or to co-produce new knowledge. And finally, knowledge brokers can facilitate innovation and play an active role in changing the system in which they operate to facilitate innovation processes. There's one last issue to discuss in this video about your role as a knowledge broker, and this is related to that of ethics. Knowledge brokerage involves people, and people are always in some kind of power relationship with each other. This means that knowledge brokerage also contributes to processes of social inclusion and exclusion, and it can favor certain social groups and disadvantage others. So before starting a new knowledge brokerage project, you can ask yourself two foremost questions. How is the problem defined, and whose values and interests are at stake? Now, this video has encouraged you to be reflexive about your role as a knowledge broker using social sciences, humanities, tools, and concepts. So which type of knowledge broker do you think you would find it easiest to fulfill? And what types of roles appear the hardest? Thank you for watching, and see you next time.